Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back looking at the dev Q&A stuff, and this time we're going to have a look at the helicopters, the naval, and the miscellaneous things. So let's get started. The first question is, can you tell us the status of the Longbow Hellfires on the Apache aircraft? These would appear to be a good counter to other more advanced helicopter weaponry already in the game, such as Pass 3s, which already features fire and forget, so such a system is not impossible to replicate. And the answer is, at the moment, we're not working on Longbow Hellfire missiles for the AH-64D. In comparison to the statistical inequality of the Tiger UHT, which required reworking of the Pass 3, existing statistics of the AH-64D looks fine. Also, we're always cautious to add fire and forget equipment designed to destroy ground units. It has to be considered that unlike Pass 3, which is a thermal seeker from which you can hide the tank with special multispectral smoke, the AGM-114L will be able to see the target through such smoke, plus it has a slightly longer launch range, and the helicopter itself can carry up to 1680 gems, unlike the Tiger UHT. All this seems to us to make such missiles too imbalanced to add at this stage. Well, it's nice that they, put that in. I think fire and forget weaponry when it comes to even the Tiger UHT is kind of ridiculous, because the way that you counter it, you have to know that the missile is coming in, and there is no way of knowing the missile is coming in unless you see it, or maybe you hear it with the new system, but by that point you're already kind of screwed. I am really skeptical about fire and forget stuff in general. It seems to really decrease the amount of skill at high tiers, but the main issue with it is that it feels like a dice roll sometimes when you go into games. And this is kind of like when you have stuff like G91s running around, when you have stuff like FJ4s running around, but when you have helicopters on top of that as well, I feel like it is just you randomly die every once in a while because you can't cover all bases when it comes to trying to actually keep yourself alive. So generally what ends up happening is you will just die randomly, and it isn't a fun experience to just die randomly when it comes to pretty much any game. It would be, let's say you're playing, I don't know, like another game. It's kind of like artillery, I suppose, in World of Tanks, where you just get bopped from somewhere you had never knew even existed because you can't keep your eyes on everything 360 degrees. And I don't want to add more of these hard counter ideas because they always end up either really good or really bad, and this would definitely be one when implemented which would be way too good. There is no counter to this system. Even with, even if they add APS systems in the game, I'm sure they're going to add them in as modifications, so the majority of times you're not going to be able to stop this stuff. So, as I said, I'm happy that they've taken this stance, and I hope going forward we'll have less fire and forget stuff in the game, which I doubt will happen, but c'est la vie. The next question is, can you share your thoughts on the proposed Swedish helicopter tree from the community? Do you think it's viable to create a whole tree based on these examples of armed helicopters, and it's something you would consider? The answer is, the author of the topic has done a good job, but so far we cannot comment on the implementation and even more about the timing of the Swedish helicopter tree. However, as we have repeatedly said in terms of content, we strive to give all game nations complete vehicle setups. So if you don't know what proposed Swedish helicopter tree is talking about, this is from Block High, and I actually did a video with him going through these about maybe a month or so ago, and pretty much all we did was we just went through each of the tiers, each of the aircraft, and let's just say there is a bit of a limited amount of vehicles that can be added to Sweden, and certain liberties were definitely taken when it came to this tech tree. And if you want to see that video, I'll leave a link in the description for it. It is a good video, and it's from the creator of this, and he goes through each each of the things. Blockhigh is very knowledgeable when it comes to Swedish vehicles. It's very interesting, talking to him about it. And the key thing, at least I take away from this answer, is obviously they do want to add in Swedish helicopters at some point, but this is the big one that people need to remember when trying to implement independent minor nation tech trees. As we have repeatedly said in terms of content, we strive to give all game nations complete vehicle setups. So when you create, let's say, a ground tech tree for Romania, or when you create an air tech tree for, I don't know, Bulgaria or Belgium, what you have to look at is not just the aviation part, you have to look at all of the four cornerstones. You have to have a look at aviation, ground, helicopters, and naval. It's as simple as that. So make sure to remember this when thinking about, ooh, I would like to see this in game, or oh, I'd like to see this nation. Work out if they have the four pillar stones, and then go from there. The next question for helicopters is, in simulator ground battles, you can spawn into a helicopter twice with ATGMs right from the start of the battle. Could you please review this and change the system to something more appropriate, like what was done with Ground RB, limiting helicopters from overpowering ground battles with ATGMs at the start? At the moment, the statistics of the efficiency of the helicopters in SB is at an acceptable level, so we don't plan to limit the respawns yet. It should be remembered that conditions in SB are different from those in RB, control type, which will be used where the aircraft can respawn directly in the air. I mean, that's true. They are different. At the same time, I have seen way too many people take over games in SP with specific helicopters that are about, and I would like to see, once again, the statistical basis. It's nice that you talk about the statistics. It would be nice to at least have a little bit of, push on the statistics themselves. What I mean by this is, give us like a stat which you see as acceptable. Like, what range of stats when it comes to kills, when it comes to win rates, when it comes to whatever you use, do you deem acceptable? I would like to see that. The next part is for naval, and the first question is, with the arrival of the Italian fleet, we saw the first guided missile boat in the form of the Saetta P494. Can we expect to see comparable ships for other nations soon? And the answer is, at the moment, we are investigating this issue. This type of the anti-ship missile, with relatively short range and beam guide, is quite rare and hasn't been widely used, so there may be problems with adding it for all nations. That is true. A lot of the missiles that you see, especially from modern missiles, are not like the ones which we have in on the Saetta P494. I think the mechanic itself is kind of crazy. Whenever I've seen the Saetta been used, it's been used to great effect with those missiles. It seems insane when it's used effectively. So the main thing I take away from this is, what happened to the mines? What happened to the mines in Naval? Like, I feel like it's been at least a year or a few now. Do we have any update on the mines? Like, when they're coming in? So, yeah. The next question is, lots of maps with smaller ships seem to have very shallow areas around the spawns. The Hydroforce ships such as the PGO-2 and the PGH-2 and now the Sparviero can get stuck on or beach themselves. Do you plan to add the historical functionality to allow them to fold up the hydrofoils for shallow waters, or perhaps adjust the maps? Yes, we have some plans for this issue, as they will be in a high degree of readiness. We will talk about them more in detail. I'm pretty sure that some of the maps were already fixed, which had this issue, but it's nice to see that they're still working on it, they're still pushing forward with it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the maps that I was getting stuck on, at least when I was playing Naval like a few months back, I remember them actually already fixing them. So it's good that they fixed them. It's nice to see that they are working on the issue. The next question is, update Regia Marina included a lot of bug fixes and improvements with a smaller focus on content. It was great to see lots of attention being given solely to improvements and fixes. Can we expect to see more of such updates in between the larger content-focused updates? Yes. In general, it is our standard to release minor updates when the third digit inside the version is changed. I love it. I love it. BVVD is using numbers, even though I was completely told that the numbers of the updates are completely irrelevant, and they don't do anything for marketing purposes. With a significant number of bug fixes between big content patches. I mean, yeah, it's true. Like, all you have to do, as we've talked about here, is when it comes to changelogs, right? So you have the Regia Marina one, which is seen as a major one, and then you have all of these. It's why we have the changelog series, because of the fact that it seems like so many people struggle with the idea that there are actually bug fixes in War Thunder, and they just keep saying the same thing over and over again, which is, we need more bug fixes. And then even in major updates, like Starfighters, where a bunch of content is added, there is also all of these bug fixes right here. So it's not as if like this doesn't happen. You know, they're all just here. It's just people don't read them. So this idea that we need like more minor or like major bug fix updates, they already exist. Like, I'm still scrolling. This is the end of it. There's tons of it here. And all you have to do is go read it. It exists. So to all the people who are saying that they don't fix the game or, you know, they don't do bug fixes, just please read the changelogs. The next and last question, I believe, is the Quarantine Maneuvers event was very popular, as it allowed people to try out vehicles in battles they wouldn't normally have, and enjoy new gameplay experiences. Have you considered such an option perhaps to promote Heli EC and Naval EC? For example, perhaps a test event where anyone with rank 5 unlocked can join special battles with helicopter lineups or larger capital ship lineups? The answer is yes, we are not excluding it. Well, that's a great answer. Thank you for putting that in. I don't know why they bothered answering this question. Yes, we're thinking about it. Could you maybe expand? You know, this is the point where the interviewer like does a follow-up question, like how would you implement it in Helicopter EC? But obviously, in this setup, we can't do that. So, yeah, I think the only problem with doing stuff like the quarantine maneuvers or the test events where you'd get given like high-tier vehicles, everybody just plays like, you know, the meta crap, and then it kind of screws with like general data because you have a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the vehicles and they're just, you know, giving it a go. And as long as you discard the stats from that and don't use it, I suppose it isn't too much of an issue. And also you got the research stuff like how does it impact everything and all of these things, but it should be fine. And then we have some comments. The only one to really look at, but yeah, I don't know why this is a talking point. But anyway, the one thing to actually mention is here. So, is there any chance you've seen the T90 from Abdullah Kebab? And Esmin says, we actually answered this somewhat in the last Q&A. Without saying never say never, it's much more likely we're going to see a more modern T72 variant in the next major update. So, just to let you guys know that we're probably going to see a modernized T72 instead of the T90. So you guys can keep saying, where T90? And then when the T90 is added, you guys can say, where Amata? Or, I don't know, what other top tier vehicle is it? Where is M1A2 Slap? Or where is modernized Bradley? And you can just keep going until the cows come home. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Battling Bacon, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Universe, Eugens Terry, and also I'm Devilish and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.